Hey everyone, welcome to the Women Who podcast. I'm here co-hosting with Brittany today, and we have an incredible guest. Her name is Jessica. She created the lifestyle mindset brand, Why Wait Till Friday, where you can find joy in the middle moments of life. And so we just want to have you help us give her a warm welcome on the podcast. Jessica, we're so happy to have you here. Thanks for coming out. If you can just introduce yourself, who you are, why you started this brand, brief intro, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Well, first of all, thank you for knowing what we're all about and introducing me in such a passionate way. That definitely sets the tone.
Yeah, we love it. We were stalking your website, stalking in a good way, but we just love everything you're about. So and I know our audience will want to hear it from your words.
Excellent. So I'm Jessica. Like you said, I am the mom of 3. I think that's the most important role that I play in this world. I'm also the wife of an amazing man that I've been married to for 24 years.
Wow, congratulations.
So definitely family first in my life. I own a home health agency where we provide care to patients that are bedbound. So it's definitely a tricky environment, but we do everything in our power to make sure that the Why Wait Till Friday mindset is at the forefront of our human connection with these ill patients. Which kind of leads me to the fact that I'm the visionary behind Why Wait Till Friday and this mindset movement brand, lifestyle brand that kind of started about 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'll share whatever you want me to share about it. It comes from a place of passion for humans, because I am a marriage and family therapist by trade and had the privilege of working with many, many humans. And I think through my work with others led to my work on myself that then led to the courage that it takes to finally launch a brand of this magnitude. So here we are.
Wow, I love that. And I know Brittany's going to ask you one of the first questions, but I just want to hone in on the fact that you don't say people, you say humans. And I think that is so much more humans can relate to it, because I think a lot of times we see ourselves as individuals or people and we lose our humanness.
That's absolutely
And so
right.
I love how you refer to everyone that you've worked with and helped as humans. So
absolutely. And I am all about humans. Like, I think my greatest passion in this universe, in this world, is human beings. And just I think we're complex, and I think we don't give each other enough credit. I think we are the most capable, beings in the world. And Why Wait Till Friday is about bringing out those capabilities.
I love it. So what would you say was the pivotal moment where you recognized the need for this message to be shared with, probably more outside of your family? I'm sure you were living it already. Talk a little bit about what that moment looked like for you and how that became. And I know you also, I don't know if you mentioned it yet, but you partnered with your daughter, which I think is beautiful as well. So maybe tell a little bit of a story of how that came to be as well.
Oh gosh, my daughter, that's going to make me cry.
We have tissues, so we're good.
So, Why Wait Till Friday? It's interesting because you said first my family, then I realized, and I think it kind of happened in an opposite manner. So I was a marriage and family therapist. I am a marriage and family therapist, but in practice for many years. And I was sitting with a client who I actually admired tremendously. She was this gorgeous human being on the inside and on the outside, appeared to have a life that was very well put together. And I thought it was so courageous of her to come to seek guidance, even when to the world she had this amazing, great life. I think that that's a really proactive approach to things. And in conversation with her, she said to me, I have an absence of joy in my life. And so we then obviously proceeded to have some deep conversation, which led to me asking her, well, when was the last time that you felt joy? And she said, when I go see the sunset, I feel joy. I genuinely feel like a connection. And I said, so when was the last time you went to see the sunset? And she said 5 years ago.
Wow.
And that was my reaction.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, that is such a tangible place to be. We live in Miami. The sunset is everywhere. But the fact that you haven't had time in 5 years to go do something so simplistic that fuels your joy is baffling.
Yeah.
I sat with that night. It just like toyed in my brain how this woman it seemed so simple, but yet was so complex, right? And that's where Why Wait Till Friday as a brand idea came to life in my brain, right? And then I decided and started to really dig deep in my own self, right? And realized that as a movement, if I could live this and I could begin to document it, then maybe I'd gain the courage to bring this concept to life. And that's what I did. So like I said, I sat with it, I thought about it, and I started to literally journal. And I have hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation of living this movement that I in my brain developed.
Right.
And I did this, and I still do this till this day daily, right? And that's where the development of Why Wait Till Friday came. So it really came from a client conversation and then from an implementation personally in my own life. Because in my work with human beings and in connecting with so many people, I think I forgot that I too was human and that I also needed to connect with some of these things that in that one conversation, I realized, well, what about me? Like, what do I do on the daily to feel this joy that I believe I own, but I'm not even sure what it looks like, what it feels like, and how to feel it on the daily. And so that's the life of Why Wait Till Friday and the beginnings of it that led to today.
It is. I think it's so important too that you not only let this client spark something or ignite something in your own life, but you implemented it as well. I think there's so many people. I mean, when we first started Women Who, I would tell all the girls like, hey, I'm all in it, but we have to live out. It's like practice what you preach. And so I love that you did that before even creating or building the brand, because we do see in this world, in the age of social media, where you can see everyone and everything at just a click. You see them, promoting certain things or preaching certain things, but then living entirely different.
That's absolutely right.
And with brand success becomes brand trust. And because you're implementing everything, you're practicing what you preach, I'm sure you've been able to build such a trustworthy community and network surrounding Why Wait Till Friday. And so I think that is just key. And I would love to ask, I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but following where you went, what are some practical ways that you're able to implement joy in your life? And then after that, I'd love to kind of define what the middle moments are to you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to touch real quick because you asked me about my daughter and we didn't go there.
Right.
And then I'll translate back to that, which is an amazing question. So my daughter, I think that, so I have two boys and a girl, like I said, but obviously she's a woman like me, right? And I've been beyond blessed with this very transparent relationship with her. And in the journey of her life, I have implemented Why Wait Till Friday and the mentality of it without even knowing that I was implementing it. And now as a brand visionary and the owner of this project, what I realized is that I was documenting for me, but I was implementing for her.
Right.
Because she was young, because she was still in like the prime of development. And so what I've seen is the product of a life living this brand without even knowing you're living it. But it's the outcomes that I've observed in her are like radical, like just the self-love, the practice of self-love, the ability to find the joy in the in-between without even knowing that that's what she's doing, right? The fact that she can set boundaries, right? So I have an utmost admiration for her as even as my daughter. And so when we did our podcast together, the reaction was so like embracing by the community that we decided, you know what, we're going to do this together because it's multi-generational without even knowing that was happening, almost like a science project. Like I was doing the documentation, I was living the movement, not realizing that I was implementing this
You were creating a legacy.
her. Right.
That's beautiful.
So that's kind of where my daughter comes in. And then, with the brand and you asked me like, how do you implement this, right? How do you find, so that's a great point to make. Being in the mental health world and being such an advocate for mental health and for that space, a lot of times it gets heavy and complicated. And when you're already dealing with internal complexities, if the implementation of a betterment feels heavy, we avoid it. Just by default, as human beings, we tend to go to the avoidance tactic, right? Because we're already internally heavy. So if the project at hand feels complicated, we push it away. So with Why Wait Till Friday, number one, I tried to make it like a fun brand, like, the idea of the sweatshirts, the jewelry, that stuff that is tangent and fun and exciting to wear. And then the message of simplicity, right?
Yeah.
If you keep it simple, if you stay consistent, and if you remain intentional, it's a habit.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're fueling your joy without even knowing, because I believe that feelings are emotions in motions, but joy is a fundamental characteristic that we own. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
So that joy, if you get to know it and you become an expert of it and you fuel it and feed it simplistically and consistently with a grand intention every single day, then suddenly it's the fundamental value of your life. And no matter what's happening, it's at the core, and it will remind you. It'll come up without you realizing. So in my own life, I every single day find something, a middle moment that I'm grateful for, something. And sometimes the moment happens and sometimes I create the moment. It just depends, right? Because sometimes it's a complex day and sometimes it just doesn't magically appear, right? But I could be walking my dog and know a beautiful yellow flower and sit with it for a minute. Or I may create an intention behind, for example, my workouts, where I'll say, I'm going to work out today to honor my son, or I'm going to work out today to honor my career, or to honor the humans that have trusted me. When I create those intentionalities, then I'm grateful. And then those moments become middle moments, right? Where I'm grateful for the action behind the intention. But it's just simply the simplicity of things that makes it easy to execute. And I always put the intentionality because I think as human beings, we are more held accountable when we're doing for others than when we're doing for ourselves. So if we create an intentionality behind the activities that fuel our joy, we do them more often.
Wow.
Like today I will sit by the sunset to honor my family. Well, you're going to make it a point to sit by the sunset.
Right.
Wow,
You make an
that's a
appointment
great-
with yourself.
Great
That's
mind
right.
shift that you can put on.
Right.
The perspective shift.
That's
That's
absolutely
beautiful.
correct.
So simplicity, consistency, and intentionality. Those are your
100%.
messages. That's
Those are the
beautiful. And they're
messages.
so attainable. It's very simple and a nice little reminder when you're looking at this beautiful bracelet that you gave us that they're easy practices to be
That's right.
able to, put your foot forward one step at a time, find the gratefulness in the day, those small moments. It doesn't have to be extravagant.
Right. Not grandiose, right? That's why we call them middle moments,
Right.
because they're in the in-between, right? So the bulk of your story is in the in-between. The bulk of a story is not at the front and the end of a book. It's everything that's in the in-between, just like a human life.
Right.
Your story lies in the middle and in the in-between pages. And we forget to honor that. We spend 10 years working towards a graduation, and then the graduation came and went. People plan a wedding, for a year and a half, and then it's this event, and really the event is 5 hours, but did you enjoy the middle?
Right.
Did you enjoy the planning? Are we enjoying the planning of our lives?
And I love that one of the ways that I think you keep it simple is you give the person the opportunity to be in control, right? So what I'm saying is a lot of times we're like, only focus on what you have control over. And so if someone's going through a difficult time or a difficult season, you're saying, hey, you can find joy in it. And it can be anything, like a yellow flower. It could be anything like a gust of wind, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel the sensation on my skin, whatever it is. So you're giving people that power to create joy for themselves. They don't have to wait for a certain situation to happen. They don't have to wait until they make this amount of money, or they live in this kind of house, or they become married. We can find joy no matter where we are, no matter what season we are in life today.
That's absolutely right. And like I always say, when I compare happiness and joy, I say happiness comes and goes, right? Because that's why I say emotions are feelings in motion. But joy is the fundamental value that you have within you that you're fueling and feeding every day. If you recognize that it exists and you fuel it and feed it daily, then it grows.
Right.
And you're not even realizing that it's there. But like I said, it pokes at you even in the most difficult of moments in our lives. And I've lived this movement for 8 years, and it has not been easy 8 years of chapters of life.
Right.
There have been many, many trials and tribulations. That's another day, another podcast, right?
Yeah,
but I've faced many, many challenges along the way. But the reality is that because I've fueled my joy, when I turn to sabotage or when I turn to something negative, I can't get there because I've practiced this for so long that it's so ingrained in me that almost like my body stops me.
Right.
Like when I go to old habits or when I go to do something negative or to turn to that negative mantra, all of a sudden it's like so uncomfortable.
It's foreign to you.
I can't do it. It's like I'm navigated back to this movement and to this reality, and it's just happened by consistency.
Yeah.
Literally by a consistent approach to life.
You created a new habit. I mean, it's beautiful because it was a daily practice of gratitude, really. And now it's become so foreign when it's the opposite of gratitude. And so you're able to catch it in the moment and move it forward, which is such a practical way to live a very beautiful life, I think. And like you said, it wasn't just for you at that point. It was for your children.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to dive into that. How did that, as an entrepreneur, as a mom, multiple businesses at this point, you know, it was probably a big leap of faith for you to walk in this movement that you decided to go for. And then how did you see it coming to? Like, did this vision start small and it grew bigger than you expected? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So like I said, the vision, I've lived this movement, and I had this vision. It's been about 8 years now. And about a year ago, in a conversation with someone in the marketing world, who is someone that I admire, love, I mean, I can't speak highly enough about her. I spoke to her about this, and I said, you know, she actually, no, let me go back. We had an authentic conversation, and she was really vulnerable and open with me about something. And I honored it so much. I felt like, wow, she entrusted me so much in this. I'm going to entrust her too. And I shared with her about this idea and this vision and some of my own obstacles along the journey of living the movement. And she looked at me and she said, let's do it.
Wow.
And I was like, what? She said, let's do it. I'm going to help you. Let's make this come to life.
Yeah.
And then it just emerged from there. I think that I've learned a lot along the way of the process of developing this brand and this movement. I've learned a lot about myself. And the thing that I have felt is that when you're surrounded by support and when you surround yourself by people that believe in what you believe, and by choice you do this, right? Then it elevates.
Right.
And it gives you the courage that you need to keep going even on the hardest day, right? So I think that was the missing piece, is that at the time when I came up with this idea, it was just mine.
Right.
And it was quiet, right? And I was silently living this. But when I brought it to life and I brought the right people to my team, it suddenly blossomed.
Right.
Right.
I
And so
love
that's
that.
kind of where we're at.
I love that, because that's our mission behind Women Who.
Right.
We know that so many women have these incredible ideas, incredible dreams, or if they're feeling the complete opposite, like lonely or alone, we want to build that community where you can be vulnerable, you can be honest, you can share either your biggest dreams or biggest fears, and then you'll have that support. Because when you have the right people with you, cheering you on, motivating you, like you said, your hardest days can actually be catapult to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
And so we're huge advocates of surrounding yourself, building that community for women to have that safe space. I mean, we were just talking with Andrea, who's doing a great job producing this podcast, this episode. You know, she's going and she's diving into this new season in her life. And I asked her, I said, did anyone, because that can be kind of controversial, has anyone, you know, given you a hard time for it? And she goes, no, everybody has supported me. And I go, that's the importance. That's the reason why we have to surround ourselves with people who will bring us up, who will speak life into us, who will pull out the gold nuggets in our lives and remind us that there can be joy anywhere. And
well, I feel we're the narrators of our story,
Yes.
right? Like, we write the story, and I encourage humans on the daily to write their story. And when you write your story, you pick your characters. And how you pick your characters evolves, right? Like, who we are 10 years ago may not be who we are today. And at Why Wait Till Friday, we embrace that. We embrace the fluidity of life and the changes within our lives, and in an authentic, real way, right? Like, who may have been good for you 5 years ago may not necessarily fit where you are in this chapter. And that is okay. I always say, like, you could bring somebody real close to you at one point in your life and then realize, like, they need to go to a different place in my life. And I think that when you surround yourself and choose those elements and bring the people that fit the narrative that you are writing, then you own it. Right.
Yeah,
and it's like what we said about choosing joy. We own that joy, and giving people the power. It's not, the emotions don't have the power. The circumstances in our life are inevitable, the fears, the challenges. But what we perceive and what we write is up to us.
Right.
We own the perception of what's happening from the exterior and the interior.
Right. I love that you're using, again, joy instead of happiness, because joy is one of the fruits of the spirit. And so as humans, and as a lot of our audience, they are of faith and of Christian base, like that's one of our superpowers,
Right.
is having joy. But how do you cultivate it?
Yes.
How do you live it out? Because so many times people pray like, God, I just want more joy. Okay, but what are you doing to get it? You know?
Right. And what is your joy, right?
And
So
what
a
is
lot
your
of times
joy?
it's acknowledged, and I call it a gut. Like I always say that we carry our joy in our gut. And when I present from a mindset place, I always talk about that. Like, hold it. It's there. Sometimes we're moving so quickly in life, which is where these middle moments comes to life, is that we forget to acknowledge that this moment of joy is happening. And if we don't document it, if we don't realize that it's happening, then it just goes.
Right.
And then our joy is almost silent, right? We're not giving it the power that it needs. We're not fueling it each day so that it becomes, again, the fundamental characteristic that it's meant to be. But you own it. Joy doesn't happen because somebody else did something.
Right.
No, joy happens because you have the recognition of its existence, right? Like if you go get a Starbucks in the morning and that's something you do, on the daily, well, go intentionally and be grateful for that Starbucks and be like, damn, you know what? This is fueling my joy right now. And note that it's happening versus just going, you're on your phone, you're doing 100 things, you get the Starbucks and now it's gone.
Yeah.
And you
miss
forgot
the
that
moment. You miss the moment.
So many missed moments.
So with
right?
that being said, what tool would you give our audience to not miss that moment, to be more cognizant of those moments of joy that they feel in their gut? How can they maybe practice this?
So with this idea of why wait till Friday, slow down.
Yes.
Be present. Presence is our greatest present.
Yes.
I love that.
That's
Can you say
beautiful.
that again?
That's our holiday message this
Say
year.
that
So
again.
presence is our greatest present.
Oh, I love that.
And presence is important for ourselves as well as it is for others, right? When we are not present, so let me go back. One of the things in my life that I struggled with tremendously before this movement is that I felt that I was everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Yes.
Because I felt that physically I made it happen, right? And I, as a mom, I was everywhere, as a professional, but I really wasn't anywhere. Like there's a lot of things I don't even remember happening, where that's really different now. Like if I'm somewhere, I'm somewhere, and I make sure to be present. And in Why Wait Till Friday, and in making sure that we don't miss these middle moments, it's having that concept of presence. Like, here's my joy, creating a mantra, an intention in the morning, like I will fuel my joy today, even if it is 1 minute. Because if you do it simplistically and you do it consistently with an intentionality, then you're suddenly doing this daily, and all of a sudden your joy is always winning, no matter what, because you've been fueling it so much. So even in the darkest day, there's this little place of joy that somehow creeps up and reminds you that it's going to be okay.
Wow.
And it's crazy, but it's real. And I genuinely can say I live it profoundly. And I have been, like I said, in dark days where I've tried to go to bad habits, and I've realized like, whoa, I can't do it.
Right.
So it's being present and giving yourself the opportunity. Like I said, if you're going to walk your dog,
Yeah.
look around you, take a minute, breathe it, feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let yourself sit. I think, a lot of times in I guess throughout our lives, there's like this sacrificial concept where we're just supposed to always be on the go, always be hustling, always be achieving. Well, like, what is achievement, right? Like for me, slowing down and giving myself permission to slow down is achievement.
Right.
Like that's success for me, because by default, I just go.
Right.
So when I can slow down and take a minute and be in the middle moment of my life, I've succeeded, right? And making sure that if I'm with somebody and I'm having a conversation, that I'm there. And sometimes I gain so much from that. But if you're not there and you're everywhere, it's just talk. It's just,
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is this wasn't always a practice that you did, and so all that to say is it's possible to learn it, no matter
100%.
what age you're at, no matter where you're at, what season you're at, you're able to implement this and start today, really. And I think that's beautiful because you've gotten to see how it's impacted not just you, but your family.
100%.
And I think being more present is a present. You're right. And I think that's a beautiful message. And on the message, I wanted to kind of know how you came about Why Wait Till Friday? Because I think it's such a wonderful name. I think it really hits the nail on the head, but I'm just so curious. Why?
So I think it's because it's universal.
Mm.
So Friday is for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is waiting for Friday. TGIF, right? People start their Monday thinking of what's going to happen Friday, right? And like I said, that conversation about joy with that one client, and then me beginning to live this movement, I realized that I needed to give myself permission to achieve a place of joy even on a Wednesday.
Yes.
And it's figurative, right? But like, let's say you're planning a vacation. Well, why not bring a little bit of vacation to your home on a Thursday, right? Like, why not turn on the radio?
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing for me. Like, I love music, right? But when in the world on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, did I ever turn on music at home? I waited till the weekend. And then sometimes the weekend came and went and other things happened and then no music was turned on. Where now it's almost like intentionally I'm going to turn on the music or turn on a candle on a Tuesday and be intentional about it. Where I'm like, you know what? This is bringing joy to this moment, right? Not waiting. And I think that we are a society where we wait a lot for the grandiose, where we're preparing for the grandiose, events to happen. And then we expect to feel joy. Well, that grandiose event doesn't feel your joy. That's a happy moment.
Right.
And it comes and it goes.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like sad moments, they come and they go. Just like anxiety, just these emotions, they travel. But if we fuel our joy a little bit each day intentionally, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So it's almost like I used the reality of why wait till Friday because I felt that everybody can relate. It wasn't towards just one audience.
Right.
When you said what you just said, it reminded me, I'm coming out of kind of a dark, difficult season myself. And I started telling myself, I need to romanticize the everyday of my life. And so I showed the girls, I started kind of redefining who Annie is and what I like. So in my notes, if I see something that I like, I'm like, oh yeah, I love hydrangeas. Or, oh yeah, I have to have I love iced coffee over hot coffee. Or like, I want my home to be a space of worship all the time. So I'm going to put on worship music the second I wake up. And so so I want to encourage our listeners that even if you don't know where to start, you can start today. But even just take notes like, oh, I love the way that smells.
Right.
I'm going to go get some fragrance that reminds me of it. Or I love talking about, anything with like animals with Brittany. Okay, so I'm an animal lover. It's just fun. And so I literally have an ongoing list of like, what does Annie like?
Yeah.
What brings you joy? What brings you joy?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're narrating your story. You're beginning to own that pen and writing it, right? And it's funny because I just started in my notes. I journal it through my notes as well. But I started a song because I love music, right?
Yeah.
So now when I hear a song that I like, in anything that I'm doing, I document it and I write it. So then I can go back on a night that I'm home and I want to hear music. I remember that I want to hear those songs, right? Again, that's all being present. That's all listening to the internal dialogue that we many, many times just shift.
Right? Yeah.
We forget to hear, right? Our voice should be the loudest voice in the audience.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the voices of others. We're built by a dominant discourse that comes from external voices that kind of scripted our lives.
And half the time they're not even our voices.
That's absolutely right. So Why Wait Till Friday? The goal is to encourage people to re-own their story and to do it simplistically because I wanted to stay consistent. I wanted to have longevity. I wanted to change people's perspectives the way that it's changed mine. I'm still the same girl. I'm still the same human, but now I have new qualities that I've given myself permission to embrace because I've slowed down.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
So like I said, kind of been in a difficult season. And the other day, Brittany was at my house. We were trying to get some work done. And I'm like, I have to go for a run. I have such bad anxiety. I have to go for a run. So she's like, go for it. By all means. I come back and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know that I see how you're creating healthier coping mechanisms. Do you suggest that if people are trying to live out the lifestyle of why wait till Friday, they find someone they can trust and say, hey, I'm going to try to find healthier coping mechanisms so that they can be held accountable in a way, or that because sometimes I can do something different, like healthy, and with my mind going so fast, I don't take the second to recognize, like, hey, that's a huge improvement for you. But because Brittany was there and she knows what I'm going through, she was able to speak that out and say, hey, you're doing a great job. And it was that reminder. So do you think that this movement, this lifestyle should be lived together?
So I'm all about community, right? But I'm all about selective community.
100%.
So I think the Why Wait Till Friday movement comes from within, but has a lot to do with the choices, right? So when you choose joy, you want to make sure that that safe environment and those characters that you choose to add to your story and to the chapter and the season, I like that you use season, to the season of your life, are embracing where you are in your life, right? Because you don't want to share where it's not safe or where it may be detrimental, right? Because we tend to listen to I said this earlier, but we tend to listen to the voices of others more than our own. And I think it's very important to be generated by your own voice. But yes, accountability is huge, which is why I put intentions behind the things that I think are important for me to accomplish, because I'll do it more for someone else or for something else or for meaning than I will for myself. So absolutely, it's about community. You know, Why Wait Till Friday is a movement, right? And the idea is for community. Just be selective on where that gets placed.
I've learned not everyone deserves to know your story, like your whole story.
And you mentioned something, and I think that I can be vulnerable with this because I want the world to see, like you said, that you're never too late, right? So when I grew up, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food, and that was my like that's where I turned to heal. I didn't deal with emotions. I ate my emotions. Very, very unhealthy pattern. And so recently I went through some very serious health issues, and I was not getting the answers that I wanted. And I was very much like feeling defeated and deflated and just really not in a good place. And that one day I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm over it. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. That's it. Forget it. And I tried to sabotage, and I went and I got fast food, and I sat in my car and I literally just stared at it and I couldn't eat it because I was paralyzed by my joy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It did not allow me to make that bad decision. I felt I had to feel to heal, and I had to go through it. So the reason why I share that is because in Why Wait Till Friday, in living this movement, there is imperfection. There are hard days. I'm never going to, advocate for it's always joyful. No. That's why I say the joy is within. The circumstances on the exterior of our lives are out of our control. But when we're fueling that joy daily, then all of a sudden the hardest day happens and we cope with it.
Right. In a healthier way.
It's a coping. You literally learn to feel to heal, and you can't escape it. And that, to me, that moment was an enormous middle moment.
Sure.
And it was documented, and I shared it in safe spaces, because the reality is like, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
this is wild.
Yeah.
But it happened by total internal doing.
Wow. I love that you shared that, because me too. One of my coping mechanisms used to be binge eating. Are you laughing at me? Yeah, I'm a Mickey D's girl. Like, my screensaver was Quarter Pounder QT. Like, I lived it. I lost a bet. I worked at McDonald's for like a month.
That's amazing.
And so I was like, okay, they know too much of my life. But anyway, so I would binge eat and think, okay, this is into like a coma, like a food coma. And so now it's like having those safe people that can, tell you, hey, you don't have to go to the food. You can go for a walk, or do you want to come to my house and we talk about it? And so, I think it's also beautiful how, because you shared what you struggled with, it connected with me. And your story gives me hope that, I can continue this path of healthy eating, connecting my mind and my body, loving my body.
Right.
Like,
so I think that you just said the key. That's where I wanted to go. I think it's more than just like, I think healthy eating comes in phases.
Yeah.
I think there's episodes and chapters in our lives, right? Because if I go to Paris tomorrow, I'm not healthy eating,
course.
right?
Yeah,
So that's not,
Right.
I think loving yourself is unconditional.
Yeah.
And Why Wait Till Friday is a huge advocate for the action of self-love, which is about feeling that joy, right? When you actively and intentionally feel that joy and make sure that you're relentlessly loving yourself, then anything that is hurtful or painful, you avoid.
So let's say someone hears about you and Why Wait Till Friday, and they are thinking, I want to start this lifestyle. I want to start, participating in this movement. I'm sure when people do start, it's not perfect all the time. It's going to probably be a very messy start, right? Because you have these limiting beliefs ingrained, you have these unhealthy coping mechanisms. What would you say for someone who wants to start this lifestyle but has, ups and downs, might mess up, I'm sure it's so important to not judge yourself when you do fall back. What could you say to our audience who may be trying to start this and they might fall back, or to help them not lose hope?
So I think the most important thing at Why Wait Till Friday is the concept of enoughness.
Enoughness.
And when you can sit in your enoughness for 1 second, doesn't matter what chapter, what season, where you are in your life, when you can find a few things and make yourself enough, then you start. And you start where you are. It's not like, oh, I'm going to start when I lose 10 pounds,
Right.
or I'm going to start when I feel better, or I'm going to start when I get that job. No, you're going to find today why you're enough, and you're just going to start to love slowly every day. Like I said, simple. Find a minute, 1 minute, make it an intention today to honor whatever. I'm going to, for 1 minute, feel my joy and find my middle moment. 1 minute in each day. And if you do this daily, no matter what, I don't care if you have failed the other 23 hours. It's okay.
Yeah.
1 minute in each day will save your life.
Yeah.
Because when you love as an action and you show yourself love a little bit each day and honor that middle moment, find it, feel it, honor it. Simplistically, like I said, simplistically, consistently, and with intention, you become everything you ever dreamed of, because you already are your dream. You just have not allowed yourself to be.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think, I'm going to do this to find this. I'm going to do this to feel this. I change that narrative.
Right.
You are this. Feel this today. If somebody was to come, I'm working alongside with a person who has like a 12-week program with nutrition. And one of the things that my philosophy is love yourself today. Even if you have 80 pounds that you're not happy with, love who you are right now. And if you act towards that love that you feel today, and then you lose 80 pounds, great. But you don't lose 80 pounds to love yourself.
Right.
Your intention behind why you're doing it.
You've got to start
Right.
in the now.
Yeah.
What is it about yourself
Right.
in this particular middle moment that you're living right now that you love?
That's beautiful.
And that's the start. That's the first seed.
Right.
And then it's just staying consistent.
A little bit better, 1% better every day.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
right.
You had said something about you've started to write out what brings you joy, and it came to mind to create a joy menu. And
I love that.
We have a menu for so many things, and I'm a big foodie, so I'm a big fan of menus.
Yeah.
But I love this idea of kind of getting clear about what it is that brings you joy, and maybe
I love
for our
it.
visual learners, putting it into play.
So
and
we
having
have a
menu.
joy journal that
Okay.
we're finishing in the
very
brand
nice.
that will get on the will be on the
Keep us
website
posted.
soon.
Yeah, please.
And it's literally just squares. And the only thing documented is the moment that fueled your joy or something that fueled your joy on that day. Because again, when you document it, you see it, then it starts to become habitual. And no matter what happens in your day, you're committed to this one small, tiny thing that then you allow yourself to reflect. And then when you go back in your life, you're like, wow, those are the things in my life. Those are the patterns that fuel my joy.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm sure part of this is the journaling is so important, because there have been days where I'm on the go. I have a beautiful middle moment that I remember, And then I'm home that night and I'm like, wait, what was it again? And it's like, hold on a second. And so like write it down the second it happens
Absolutely.
so that you can go back and reminisce and see that there's beauty in the everyday, in the mundane, in your schedule, busy schedule. So I think that's beautiful that you're doing a journal.
Correct. And that's the thing, right? Is we become experts at the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're having a hard day, when we're having hard moments in our lives, like by default, human beings, we sit in it. We sit in the dark. We sit in the hard. We sabotage. We're like, it was terrible. But then when there's goodness, unless it's something grandiose,
Right.
it's overlooked.
Right.
And so it's important, like, and even as a community, it's important to be like, did you realize what you just did? Like, honor yourself. That's a deal. Like, that's a big deal. You just did that. Right? Like when my children come home with report cards and stuff, it was never about me. It's always about like, how did that make you feel?
Wow.
Like you did that. Honor yourself. It's learning to self-love, to self-value as an action simplistically.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, one of the other questions I had, so 2025 is around the corner and I'm all about dreaming big and having a vision. Do you have a vision for what's to come?
Ooh. I'm a visionary.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm about reaching for the stars, but keeping your feet on the ground because I'm not very good about keeping my feet on the ground. So I reach high. But yes, the vision is to continue to touch lives, whether it's through the podcast, whether it's through mindset conversations and chats like these, or when I do like public speaking, or the brand, the clothing. I want people to really be honoring themselves. And so it's elevating, right? So when I think of 2025, I think of elevation, right? And I think of whatever we've done in 2024, elevate to touch more humans. Because the whole idea of Why Wait Till Friday and where I came is that in private practice and in private work, I could only do one person at a time. As a movement, we can do millions.
Yeah.
And so for me, 2025 is just touching more humans. That's for me where the vision takes, whatever way that may be, right? Obviously there's a strategic business model behind this and plan. But to me, if we continue to touch more lives, then we've elevated.
That's a beautiful root value and why. I love that.
I love that so much. I want to thank you so much for being on
Absolutely.
this podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Can you tell our audience and our viewers where they can find you?
Absolutely.
Your website, your IG handle, because I think this movement can change so many lives. We believe in it.
Yes.
We are going to put what you've taught us into practice. We're going to continue doing that. And just let them know where
Absolutely.
we can find you.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing. I think that we tend to go to our why, and I always say, why not? So instead of focusing on the why, transfer that to why not. It switches perspective a lot.
100%.
But where to find us? So we're everywhere.
I love it.
Just not on Fridays, right? We're not waiting till Fridays. No, just kidding. So you can find us on our website, which is whywaittillfriday.com. You can find us on Instagram. I have my personal, which is Jess_WWTF. And then Why Wait Till Friday is whywait_till_Friday. And you'll find us there. You'll hear a lot more of our movement. And then our podcast is everywhere on Why Wait Till Friday.
Awesome.
On all the different handles.
Yeah. And you can definitely get merch from them, support the movement, have this beautiful reminder of the movement. So I know you can buy the merch on your website.
That's right.
Beautiful merch, so aesthetic. And so you're going to want to wear it every day. But everyone in the Women Who community, thank you so much for watching. We hope this interview touched you the way that it touched us. And we will see you next Tuesday.